Good morning, my friends. It is great to see you. Sandy, great to have you with us today. Yeah, Sandy and Larry have been very sick, and they're back with us now, so we welcome you home. So, kids, did you see where Petros is today? Did you find him? He's very excited today. He's very excited. You know his name Petros means Peter, like St. Peter's Church. And he's very excited about this basketball tournament that's going on because there's a team called St. Peter's that is still one of the last 8 teams in the tournament. And it's just a little school of 2,000 students, which is not many. And given that they were a 15th seed, the chances of them being there were just not very good. And yet, with God, anything is possible, said Petros to me this morning. So Petros is right up here on top of this basketball that Jackson loaned me. And he is very excited. And he wanted me to tell you the interesting thing about rooting for an underdog is that means we're rooting for all of us. All of us are underdogs, and it's nice to know that we have a chance too. So Petros, thank you. We wish you well in your tournament and your cheering of your team, and hope that you prevail. Thank you, Jackson. I appreciate it. Friends, if you are able, I'd invite you to please stand for our call to worship. We gather this morning in spirit and truth to raise a joyful noise to the Lord of life. We are here to affirm our covenant, to seek wisdom in love, and to strengthen our commitment to our caring community. We gather here in the effort to increase our compassion, to deepen our understanding, to renew our courage, and to remember who we are.
So come then, and let us celebrate this good gift of life, and live out our faith to the greater glory of a merciful and loving God.
Thanks, my friends. If you'll turn to number 569, let's sing together, God of grace and God of glory. Folks, it's so good to see you, and I know those sitting next to you want to say hello as well. Why don't you take just a moment to pass the peace of Christ? Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Remind me that it is your power in me and not my own that offers life abundantly. Wash me thoroughly and prepare me. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Larry and Paula, for heading that up. I really appreciate it. So we had some members of our church right over here on 6th Street this week lost a building where they had their woodworking business. Dale and Laura really caught my attention. He said, we were just so fortunate and so appreciative that the fire didn't extend to the neighbors. I thought, what a perspective. You know, he thought with all the dust, all the sawdust and the lacquers and thinners and everything, something combusted and started the fire. But he said, we're okay. And we're so grateful that our neighbors are okay too. I thought, what? That says something, doesn't it? Says something about their faith and their perspective in life. Joanne Sedlacek's sister, Dorothy Bear, has transitioned over to Sharon Richardson Hospice. And we want you to know about that. And our dear Marge Steffes, the one with the indomitable spirit, she is doing well following surgery, and was thinking she might come home today. We'll see. You know, day by day, but she's doing really well. And I wanted you to know about that. If you'll take your bulletin and flip over from the back, 1, 2, and you'll see upcoming services and events. I'm not going to read all this to you because you all know how to do that yourselves. But I would call your attention to all the things going on here. And in there is not just the Lenten gatherings that we've been having on Wednesday, and I so want to thank those of you who have been a part of that, those who have headed it up and made soup and sandwiches and have put forth a little worship service. We thank you so much for doing that. But you'll see that Monday, Thursday, and Good Friday, and Easter's coming up, 6:30 and 9 on that. Anyway, I just wanted you all to know about that. So appreciate that. You also notice that unlike most Sundays, you have a little offering envelope. Do you say envelope or envelope? Envelope? Yeah, you go either way, huh? Yeah, okay. Well, there's this piece of paper that is in your bulletin, and it is part of the one great hour of sharing that we do in the United Church of Christ. And the other brochure in there explains what this money is going for. And if you are so moved, we would invite you to stick cash or check or your credit card in this envelope and just leave it in the offering plates on your way out. We would very much appreciate that. And that's a bit about the life of the church. It always surprises me how people describe many of Jesus' actions as so mysterious, mystical, and otherworldly. For example, they'll talk about Jesus, or they'll focus on him walking on water or walking through walls in the case of getting to doubting Thomas to talk with him about the fact that he's alive. Or they want to point to his mysterious knowledge that if the disciples only cast their net on the other side of the boat from where they're fishing, that they would fill their net to overflowing. They talk about this mysterious knowledge that somehow Jesus knows that. And so it is with Jesus as he goes to Jerusalem and into the temple, as though he were living out some preordained script on the way to his crucifixion, his death, and resurrection. It's like saying Jesus didn't have any choice in the matter. But I don't think that. I think the more human response that Jesus shows, the one that we all have, is the more courageous step of choice. Let me put it this way. It didn't take a fortune teller to see that there was trouble brewing in Jerusalem. Jesus had stirred a hornet's nest, and the Romans and the leaders of the synagogue who had this corrupt alliance were very upset with him. Very upset. And they wanted it to stop. It didn't take a fortune teller to see that was what he was walking into. And as he walked in and he started overturning the tables of the money changers, he stepped into the ring with full awareness, willingness, and courage. You remember the story? Then they came to Jerusalem, Jesus and his disciples, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who were selling and those who were buying in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. He was teaching and saying, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." And when the chief priests and the scribes heard it, they kept looking for a way to kill him, for they were afraid of him, because the whole crowd was spellbound by his teachings. And when evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. We had a funeral here yesterday. Sarah was here. The sanctuary was packed. I'd say about half of them, Sarah, were 20-something and younger. You see, they had come to support two young daughters, 17 and I'm going to guess about 20, 21, 26. Because their mom had died at the age of 45. She had MS, she had migraines, she had throat cancer. And something happened at the hospital, and she died. Aside from an uncle and a fiance, there was no other family. Paige and Kirsten sat in the second row, numb, heartbroken, lost. And yet they could feel the support and love from their friends who had come to be with them. You can't do a service like every other service at a time like that. So John and I put together something very different yesterday. Very different. Because what we tried to do was to speak the language of those that had come. We all speak a language. There's kind of a church language that we have all kind of grown into. But then we wonder why 20-somethings don't come to church. We wonder why they feel alienated and distant, and they wonder if God has anything to do with them. So John and I did something very different. We played a couple of YouTube videos. And I shot a text to my girls, my 3 30-something girls, because I had never heard of these artists. And there was this one artist who was a rapper. And I figured my girls would know who it was, and indeed they did. And Molly wrote back quickly, and she said, "Dad, that's a great choice for a song, but whatever you do, don't play anything else he does." I think I know what she was trying to say to me. "Dad, you like your job, and you should keep that job." But what was most important to me was speaking the language of those kids that had come. What else would you do? What else would you do? It was a little while back. I was having coffee with this one minister. This is why I don't have coffee with ministers, okay? I had coffee with this minister, and we were talking about our philosophies and approaches to confirmation. And he brought up this one idea, and he said, I don't really know how to keep their attention. He said, "What do you do?" And I didn't have the heart to tell him that what we do is we bribe them with candy, and we ask them what they believe and how they think. He said, well, he had a problem last year at Confirmation Sunday. And our Confirmation Sunday, by the way, if you're wondering, is coming up May 15. Okay? Mark that down, May 15. He said last year he had everything all prepared, and the kids were instructed on how this was going to go. They were going to come up front, they were going to spread out, and he was going to ask them one at a time certain pre-programmed questions, and they would give the party line. They would answer the response that they were taught. There was this one kid, and he went to one of the teachers and he said, I don't know if I can do this. I have some doubts. And the teacher, he said, what should I do? And the teacher said, say it anyway. Stand up there and give the answer anyway. So the minister said to me, so I got to the kids and I asked them the question and they gave the answer. But when I got to that one kid and I asked him the question, he paused and he said, well, I'll tell you how I see it. And he gave the answer, what he believed. The minister said he was about ready to challenge this wayward soul. And he thought better of it, which was the right decision. And he went on. And he got back to the next question. There were about 5 or 6 questions. And he asked each of the kids. He got the pre-programmed answer. And he got to that kid. And he said he was praying. He said, I was praying that I wouldn't wring his neck. And I asked him the question. And he said, well, I'll tell you how I see it. And he told them what he believed. Now I'm sitting there sipping on my coffee with cream, and I'm thinking, well, this is pretty good. But he wanted to know, what do we do for crowd control in these kinds of situations? Again, I didn't have the heart to tell him, well, we didn't really believe in crowd control all that much, but what we did believe in was people owning the faith for themselves. And that we teach our children not so much the answers to the questions, but we teach them how to think about God and how to think about their life in relation to God. I'm not sure he liked my answer. But I can tell you, we haven't had coffee since then. You remember when you were that age, when you were 12, 13, and somebody said that you were going to be standing up front, in front of everybody, and you were going to be giving answers, and you were hoping you weren't going to forget what you were supposed to say? You think about the courage that it took to say, well, I'll tell you how I think about it. I'll tell you what I believe. Man, I would hope that our church is full of people like that. You see, I think about Jesus, and we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks when it's Palm Sunday, and how he came riding into town on that borrowed burro. And how he had to have known what he was walking or riding into. Had to know that he had stirred that hornet's nest with the Romans and the leaders of the synagogue, because they had that corrupt, unjust alliance. And as long as they could control people and maintain their power, they were happy campers. But Jesus saw how unjust, and he saw how wrong it was, Claire, that these people would come and pay what they could pay to buy a pigeon or a dove and exchange some money so they could go into the temple and make their sacrifice. And Jesus saw how the money changers had taken advantage of them, because they were changing, you see, their Roman coins into Jewish coins, because you couldn't take the Roman coins of oppression into the sanctuary. And they had to change them outside. And when Jesus saw how this was such an unjust system and how people were being taken advantage of, He walked right into that temple and He overturned the tables. And all hell broke loose. That was it for the Romans. That was it for the Jewish leaders. He had crossed the line, and they knew it. And they had decided they needed a final solution. You see, what I'm saying to you this morning, folks, is that it took courage. It took courage for Jesus to do what He did. Not just some mystical, magical, miraculous fellow who just sort of floated above it all. No, this was the human Jesus. The one who knew what would happen if He made this decision. And He made it anyway. I'll cut to the chase. Because He loved you. He did it because it was the loving thing to set right and to challenge that system that the money changers were involved in. And He wanted for all time to say, there's a difference, you see, between politics and righteousness. And He loved you. When it comes to courage, it's important for all of us to stand up and say, well, I'll tell you how I see it. I'll tell you what I believe. It's important for us to be able to do that. We were talking about it Wednesday night, weren't we? About the courage to be able to go against the crowd. Oh, you should have seen it yesterday. It was in full bloom. The whole place was packed out. And I told him, I just told him, I don't know this gal. But if you'll help me and we'll put together and craft and create and build a service together, when we walk out of here, we'll go, that was Jody. So I said, will you help me? Nobody raised their hand. And I said, let me try the left hand. Will you help me? A couple hands. And by the time we were done, everybody was talking. But it's always hard in a crowd, isn't it, to speak up, Larry, and to go against the stream. Imagine when you ride into Jerusalem on that borrowed burro, and you know what you're walking into, and yet you still display that characteristic of courage. I'm going to say one more thing to you. I am captivated. Ask Karen. I am captivated by what's happening in Ukraine. I don't know how far it will extend. I don't know if it will be a regional conflict. I don't know if it will extend into Europe. I don't know if we'll be involved in it. But I know this much. I know two things. I know I don't talk politics with you very much because I'm not an expert in politics. And I don't think if I'm not an expert, I shouldn't talk to you about it. And I hope all ministers hear that. But I do think this. I do think that we may have similar or dissimilar opinions about what's going on. And I would so welcome hearing from you. I want to learn and grow. I want to have some understanding of this. So please talk to me about what your opinions are and talk with each other. And understand that we can have differences. But I'll just tell you where I'm at. You don't have to be here at all. But where I am is I'm growing increasingly uncomfortable with the I don't even know what word to put to it. To the devastation, the slaughter, the innocents that are being lost. And it's hard for me as an American to sit back and wonder, what's the courageous thing to do? I imagine we're all thinking this. And where are we going? And what is our role? And how are we to act? Because every time we fail another day to act, more children, more innocence. My opinion is that we should do more. My opinion is that we should do everything at our disposal to bring this to an end. And I think we are so tied to our politics that we're not doing that. Okay? Whether it's our alliances, whether it's our oil, whether it's our economy, I don't know. But I don't have the sense that as an American we're doing everything we can do. And I'm uncomfortable with that. It feels like World War II all over again. And we said we would never allow that to happen again. Politics is not an easy calculus, and my brain is not big enough. Politics is not an easy calculus, but neither is righteousness a difficult decision. And that's just where I come down. Courage. We need courage. Come tell me what you think. May God bless you. And may God bless St. Peter's United Church of Christ. We are called to be God's people, number 580. Well, this is the way I see it. That it's a good thing to live with courage, faith, and love. And I would suggest that we all get about doing it. God bless you, one and all.